So this Saturday, the eyes of the racing world look upon Bensalem, Pennsylvania, and Parx Casino and Racetrack as the Pennsylvania Derby, the 15-race Pennsylvania Derby card will be conducted with two $1 million grade ones, the Pennsylvania Derby for 3-year-olds and the Cotillion for the 3-year-old fillies. Post time for the Pennsylvania Derby is 6 o'clock on the dot. That's nice. That's easy to remember. Listen, you don't have journalism. You don't have sovereignty. But to me, you got a really nice group of 3-year-olds outside of those two. I don't know who else you would really want in this race. And this is coming from someone who is pissed off about how the Pennsylvania Derby has started to cannibalize the Travers. Mm-hmm. You got to call a spade a spade. This is a really nice field. Baeza is the 2-1 morning line favorite, but very close behind him on the morning line is goal oriented at 5-2. You got Gosker, who was the runner up in the Haskell and the Preakness. Interesting new shooters like Magnitude. Obviously, he didn't run that great in the Travers, but he's capable of a brilliant race. David of Athens, I think, is interesting. Nice lightly raced horse for Brendan Walsh. Big truck. I mean, there's some really fascinating horses in here that, yes, are not going to be a part of the championship discussion because sovereignty has exploded away and journalism exploded away from everybody else. But this is a really fascinating race to me, John.
Well, and again, you can't look at horse racing Twitter and come to any kind of a positive consensus. Okay, we'll leave it at that. But some of the ire that is on there right now is like, hey, there's no grade one winner. That's my voice for horse racing Twitter.
Yes,
gotcha. There's no grade one winner in the Pennsylvania Derby. What a piece of shit race it is. Well, nay, I say.
Listen, just real quick. The two horses won all the grade ones this year.
Well, I was just going to say, if there's no journalism, there's no sovereignty. If you take them out, you have 5 different horses of the 10, Joe, that were grade one placed. Okay. So if you take out, the top 2 horses out of the division, these horses probably would have filled in and hit the wire first in those grade ones. But even so, they're still hitting the wire. They're still in the trifecta and they're still getting black type and grade one placing. And Baeza lost by a length in the Jim Dandy to Sovereignty. And Gosker lost by a half a length to Journalism in the Haskell. And Magnitude, was grade one placed in the Travers, albeit he lost by 20 lengths. But there's 5 horses in here that are grade one placed. So it's unfair to me to say that the Pennsylvania Derby, this year, is anything but a grade one. Yeah, we'd all like to see one of the big 2 in there, but you take out like Happy Delusional, who really I don't think should be in the race.
The 2 certainly should not be in the race.
And Altabelli, who was a $15,000 claimer in the race, and you have 7 or 8 legitimate horses in the race. So Sandy on the rail, I think, is an improving horse. If you cross out his one turf race, he's literally improved every single race from the time he started at Ellis Park.
That was one of my worst beats of the meet at Saratoga when he lost the Curlin by a head like that. And he was in front of Chancellor McPatrick, and then they bumped a couple times, and then he lost the Bob at fucking 13-1. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so he's an improving horse. You got Magnitude. You have David of Athens, who look, I don't know if the horse belongs to be in here or not, but certainly won very impressively last time out at Ellis, and is a Nyquist. So that he's got the opportunity to jump up and do well. Goal Oriented, is lightly raced, but really other than the Preakness has danced every dance that he's been in. Baeza, you mentioned, who short just by the fact that he was born into the wrong crop. If he was a different, born in a different group, he may be, the horse that we talk about for 3-year-old champ. Gosker, who ran second in the Haskell and the Preakness, and then Moplex, who, is interesting to me just in the sense that the horse has got speed, and on the Parx racetrack, that's what you really need. So to me, it's actually a really solid group, especially when you compare it to some of the 4 or 5 horse fields that post Triple Crown racing has garnered and benefited from after the Triple Crown. I know that last part didn't make sense, but forgive me because I'm already on to the next race, which is the $1 million Cotillion. Joe, when was the last time you remember a 3-year-old filly race being the exact same purse as its male counterpart?
Probably last year at Parx when they did the same
exactly.
thing.
That's exactly my point. I mean, to have $1 million race for the girls is great. And again, 4 of the horses in here have tremendous speed. I personally think that this is a little bit different than the PA Derby, because I think Lucara and Good Cheer stand out in my mind to the rest of this field. Of course, what would a Parx or Mid Atlantic graded stake race be without a horse owned and trained by Uriah St. Louis? God bless him. He just tries every single time. And you know what? His horses hit the board more times than I want to admit. I mean, he takes shots, when he can. But, to me, those two horses really stand out. But, Joe, there's a lot of speed in here, and I don't know if that's good for Lucara at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, honestly, I think both races have a lot of speed. I was going to say about the PA Derby, I think it really sets up for Baeza. I mean, you got Magnitude. David of Athens is pretty quick, goal oriented, has speed. Gosger, Moplex. I mean, they all got to be close. So I think Baeza is the horse to beat. But I if you are trying to get a price in there, I think Big Truz and So Sandy are both interesting. So Sandy should save ground on the rail with Kendrick, and Big Truz has got a lot of talent, and I think they're just trying to find the right distance for him. So those two I would be interested in beyond just Baeza. But yeah, I agree with you on the Cotillion as well. I mean, I'm not a huge Lucara fan. I just think she's a nice horse, but I think the big wins that she's had, she's gotten loose on a speed favoring racetrack. Mm-hmm. And, I think that there was really no excuse in the Alabama, other than maybe she didn't want to go a mile and a quarter. She got everything her own way and just had nothing when the real running started. So certainly a nice filly, but I don't think that she is as good as her resume looks on paper. I'm interested to see what Scottish Lassie does. She's the 9-5 morning line favorite. She's kind of a boomer bust horse. She won the Coaching Club American Oaks by 15 lengths. The last time you saw a horse win a grade 1 at Saratoga by 15 lengths. And, she skipped the Alabama, which I was, curious about. To point to this race, maybe they think she doesn't want to go that far, but she drew the rail, so Rosario is going to have to kind of navigate whether he wants to send and go to the front and try to take back and go around horses. So there's going to be a little bit of a decision point early on in the race for her. I think, to me, this is the race that Good Cheer has to win if she's still one of the elite 3-year-old fillies, because, she had every chance to go get Nitrogen in the Alabama and couldn't do it. And Nitrogen obviously ran very well, but I thought Good Cheer just ran fine in that race. She ran poorly, obviously, in the Acorn before that. To me, with all the speed in this race, as you mentioned, this race is going to set up on a silver platter for her. Mm-hmm. And it's time to see whether she's still that filly. And it's going to make a big difference in the championship race, obviously. This is, other than the distaff, I think this is the most important race thus far for the 3-year-old filly championship, because you got a lot of horses who can make an argument. Good Cheer obviously won the Oaks and was undefeated before that, but has kind of fallen off a little bit. Scottish Lassie, as I mentioned, had the 15-length win in the grade 1, not quite accomplished as the other ones yet, but another grade 1 win here could launch her there. Lucara, like we said, multiple grade 1 winner. So I think there's a couple of different horses who can make a statement towards getting that Eclipse Award later this year or early next year. I think Clico is a little interesting. Similar to David of Athens and the PA Derby. This is a Brennan Walsh horse who's lightly raced. Brennan Walsh horses, I think, typically get better as they race more. She's a horse that's got a little bit of tactical speed that can be close enough if the pace doesn't materialize. I mean, Indy Bay, who's stretching out, has got to make this a quick pace. So I think Clico's a little bit interesting for the Avengers. Oh, they're X-Men racing now. I see X-Men racing. They actually named themselves after superheroes officially. All right, cool. So yeah, I think she's super interesting and talented. But I think to me, the story of the race is Good Cheer still the same horse that she was through the Kentucky Oaks.
Yeah, and you mentioned Good Cheer. This is a make it or break it race for her, as silly as it sounds, because she needs to bounce off of a couple of what I would say lackluster in comparison to her previous races. Joe, the thing that's interesting to me also is you got Scottish Lassie on the rail, Lucara right next to her. Both those horses have the same kind of racing style, where they try to get in front and improve from there. The thing that concerns me about both of them is, for the most part, you look at their races, neither one of them ever passes horses. So wherever they break and they are kind of at the half-mile pole, that's usually where they finish, which, concerns me. You mentioned the Safi Joseph horse, Indy Bay, that is coming from a 7/8 race, albeit I think it was a 7/8 race at Churchill, which is like, what, a 9-turn race at Churchill? I mean, not Churchill, like at
Charlestown.
Charlestown, yeah, I think it's like 9 turns. It's a lot of lefts. So she's already graduated to run at least 2 turns, which this race is at the Cotillion. But there's a lot of speed in here, and I think, as you mentioned, it sets up really perfectly for good cheer, and also I think maybe for the outside horse for Dry Powder, which is a Chad Summers horse, a gun runner they paid over $500,000 for, that won the prep for this race.
She was impressive too,
very impressively, and ran a lifetime best number, and you wonder at that point, is she going to be able to break through and continue to move up the ranks, or is she going to bounce? Because the last time she ran a lifetime best, you can say, she ran 3rd in the Oaks at Saratoga. You can say, well, that wasn't really a bounce. Well, it was, because she lost by 21 lengths.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating card. Like, I joked about, Parx in the open of this segment that, a lot of times people think of it as a casino that happens to have a racetrack attached. This is probably one of the few cards that they're going to have where they handle close to what they actually pay out in purses. But it is worth paying attention to, in addition to the Cotillion and the Pennsylvania Derby, which are really fascinating grade 1s. You have the grade 2 Gallant Bob for 3-year-olds sprinting 6 furlongs. It's a great $400,000 grade 2. You get the Parx Dirt Mile, you get the Greenwood Cup. So it's a really, really nice day of racing. So we're looking forward to it. And I think, honestly, we're going to have, at least on the Philly side, we're going to have a lot more clarity about the championship discussion after Saturday's races.